With so many conversations within the advertising technology ecosystem, it's challenging to differentiate between headlines, opportunities, trends, and long-term solutions. Let's pull back the industry curtain for a casual, direct conversation about the changing state of ad tech over a cup of coffee. Both of you have coffee. This is great. So welcome to Adtech Cafe. I'm Joseph Dressler, Adform's US VP of Sales today, and I'm incredibly excited to be joined by Yo and Mo. Yo and Mo, why don't you actually really introduce yourselves?
So I'm Yolanda Angulo, and I am officially Yo. I am Director of Shopper Marketing at Mondelēz International. And I was most recently customer facing with a couple of customers out east. And just recently I came internal to a headquarter position where I'm responsible for retail media, e-com integration, and innovation. So a lot of wonderful test and learn opportunities at Mondelēz, and then act as brand liaison. So, you know, more specifically, I help support the strategies that roll out to the field, and then the execution and the development of those programs are shifted to our wonderful directors of shopper marketing for each of the key customers.
So we'll obviously jump into it, but you clearly have a much bigger view than just the media part of retail media, of literally how the engagement with the retail partnerships come to life.
I do. The wonderful opportunity to see the shift of spending over time and how that has shifted from incentives, i.e. coupons, into the world of digital media, not just retail media, but overall digital media. So it's been a phenomenon, and being in this role or in this industry for over 20 years, you know, this stuff wasn't available back then, right? And in some cases it's renamed from, you know, word of mouth to influencers or content creators. But you know, it really has changed. And you know, there's a heck of a lot more spending and opportunities to reach the shopper. But as fragmented as it is, still, you know, it's a great opportunity. Income, you know, e-com and online shopping. So just added another layer. Which is fascinating.
Awesome. Mo, better known as Mike Merna, and we made, for everyone who's listening, we needed a Joe, Yo, and we needed a third O, so that's why Mike became Mo. But Mike, why don't you formally kind of say hello?
Thank you, Joe. I'm not sure we really needed the Mo, but let's roll with it. I am Mike Merna. Nice to meet everybody, listeners. I am Chief Growth Officer at the Mars Agency. If you don't know Mars, we are a connected commerce agency founded 50 years ago by Marilyn Barnett. And we've been doing shopper marketing and evolved into connected commerce as everything else has evolved over time. We are over 700 plus employees, doubled our size of our agency in the last 3 years. And we worked with a lot of the top CPG blue chip companies. We also work directly with a lot of the big CPG retailers. And I come from CPG. I'm a CPG nerd. I started back in 1993. I was on the client side for 18 years in every role I could possibly try out. And then eventually moved into media and data and analytics full-time about 11 years ago. And I've worked with AOL, Oracle Data Cloud, and more recently Quotient Retail Media. And I'm happy to be here talking about retail with you guys.
Awesome. So Mike, one quick anecdote maybe from you. So you've been on the brand side, you've been on the tech side, you've been on the vendor side. What's the one thing you bring from the brand side that when you went into vendor and kind of agency side, you said to yourself, if only more people understood what happened on the brand side, maybe the industry would evolve differently or be smoother or any kind of open.
Yeah, I remember I used to run a shopper department at Pfizer on the OTC side of things. And every Friday I would have, we would call them vendors, come in and they would pitch us. And for like an hour or two, once a week, I'd listen to a lot of pitches. And I would leave these meetings thinking they all sounded exactly the same. They all sounded great. They're all perfect. And very few of them knew anything about my business. And so, and even my industry, didn't even know much about CPG. They were just trying to sell me impressions. So I realized that there was an opportunity for the industry to get experts working at these media agencies, wherever they were, to start grounding their solutions in the problems of the brands, because that wasn't happening. And that's eventually why I switched sides, was I knew that I could make a bigger impact actually with these media companies, helping them figure out, okay, you have good solutions, but they're not grounded in anything.
Yeah.
So let's change the narrative and let's be more strategic versus transactional.
And I think that's a great transition into retail media, because in some ways, and you mentioned this before, retail media is the transition between buying impressions and getting outcomes. And that's really what you're talking about. Is how do you sell to a CPG partner? How do you help them drive more cases, right? Or he sells 1,000 cases somewhere. Really, you want to find out how do I sell 1,100 cases? Because that's a win, right? Selling the same 1,000 cases, but just marketing to the people doesn't do anything for your business specifically.
It's all about incrementality.
Oh, we'll definitely get to that.
Oh, you don't like ROAS?
So it right.
And then, right, like, well, let's set the stage for a second, right? So retail media clearly is the buzzword du jour, has been for a while. And I certainly like to joke that if you go back to 2018 or even early 2019, most people couldn't spell retail media. They didn't know what it was. It was Amazon and everybody else. If you go back to 2018, Walmart had just left Triad, right? And that wasn't the best relationship, to say the least. They were working on bringing things in-house. Kroger and Target were doing something, but weren't getting national attention for it. And then all of a sudden it started, right? The pandemic hit, e-commerce, part of your introduction, right, exploded. And that really accelerated the idea of what retail media could be, because people now looked at the Amazon model of saying, oh, wait, there's ways to monetize my audiences. So kind of keeping it open-ended, go back to that time for a second, because you've been at Mondelēz for way longer than the last 4 or 5 years, which is great. What was that transition in kind of, not the pandemic itself, let's not, I think we've all as a country have spent way too much time talking about it. What was that like to be internally, where all of a sudden retailers were coming out of nowhere, partners of yours that saw tremendous growth in e-commerce and then you weren't likely paying a lot of attention to? What was it like to go through that transition?
It seems so far away, right? Like, what happened to those 3 years? It's even hard to recall. You know what? It's been fascinating, really, going through that, that time period, and that transition. And over time, because of the investment that we're making, more and more eyeballs are on retail media. More people are involved and engaged. For example, we are now bringing our media partners, internal media partners in. We are bringing our media agency in to manage a portion of retail media. And then we've got Shopper. I think, it's challenging, right? Because there's so many pieces to an organization that are involved in this. Every organization is structured differently. There is no right or wrong answer. But the e-com team, at least within Mondelēz, they renamed themselves digital commerce, because it went from just e-com to this bigger, digital space. So the transition and just the transformation over the past 4 years has been incredible. And we're still learning, we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to put together, sort of bring all of those insights in and understand benchmarks and glean more insights. Really work with partners like the Mars Agency on measurement, like IAB. There's champions out there like Claire Wyatt from Albertsons Media Collective, working with IAB, that are phenomenal, that are really trying to help us get to a place where we're all sort of aligned. But
a standardization, if you will.
A standardization, yeah, definitely. And the standardization has to happen internally for each CPG as well, because it's not apples to apples across the board. But so we're at the point right now where a very large percentage of our investment, right, has shifted from what, at least from a shopper perspective, what traditionally was coupons, into the digital space. A big part of that being retail media. But really, think about retail media, right? A big part of retail media is sponsored search. And that is going to continue to evolve as well, right? As AI comes in. This keyword, is really going to evolve. So the transformation is really just beginning, but it's been exciting. It's been exciting, and it's been chaotic, as well, just to bring in all the right people and make sure everyone's on the same page. And by the way, it's not just our agency folks and our shopper marketing folks and our digital commerce people. The sales team is critical in this, right? The customer business team, at least for us, our CBTs, are critical in sitting at the table to better understand what the heck is retail media? What is it doing for my business?
Right.
How is it driving and adding value? Because at some point, there are going to be some trade-offs in terms of where we invest. So it's, I think we are just really at the, you're not even at the, we're really just beginning to have all the right conversations, internally.
So as always, you gave a ton to feed into. Mike, from a different perspective, same question, right? Think about the Mars agency. You're so much more than what I'd call a traditional digital media shop, right? You are more, in fact, you mentioned it in your intro, you are a shopper marketing company first and foremost, and then built out technologies to kind of support that. So given kind of some of the things that you shared, like what's Mars's view on this and how the transformation's been happening, and what do you look to take advantage of as moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I remember buying retail media, which we just called, I don't even know what we called it back in the 90s, 20s, 2000s, early 2000s, but we were buying print, we were buying, when digital became a thing, we started buying digital, but we bought these media opportunities because our merchants asked us to, or in a lot of cases told us to, right? So we knew that if we spent X amount of dollars, we'd get in-store support, we'd get new distribution, we would get all types of things. And that's why we bought it. And I remember talking to my media teams, hey, I'm going to spend $100,000 with Walmart on this or that. Can you check and make sure I'm getting a good deal? And they would always say, these rates are way higher than what I can get elsewhere. I said, yeah, but you're not getting, in-store displays in 3,000 stores when you buy your national media.
Yeah.
So they would never factor that in, but I did appreciate their help in figuring out were the CPMs, was I getting robbed or was it in the ballpark? How much of a premium was I paying? Because we all knew we were paying a premium. But it went from, I bought it only for the support to where it is today, where that's still at play. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
But it went from that to, wow, this stuff actually works. Now that we've got targeting and now that there's measurement that can actually prove that it works, which didn't exist, not that long ago. And now you're starting to see budgets get bigger and bigger because it does work. And that's why you get all these people involved. You have agencies involved that weren't there before. You've got national media teams that are involved that weren't before, because it's substantial and you do want to make sure that you're investing it wisely. So it's been interesting to see that evolution. And at Mars, we believe that you have to look at the total business impact of retail media, not just impressions and clicks and typical media metrics, because retail media is not just media. It's retail plus media. It's in-store plus media.
Right.
It's all of those things plus media. And so we believe firmly that the best way to get the most out of that is to work with people that understand retail and the entire picture. What is the brand trying to solve for? How's retail media a part of that? And what other things can you get when you invest in that? So you're looking at the total impact, not just impressions and clicks.
It's keyword, right? There's nothing sexy about it.
No,
but
it's blocking and tackling.
It's right, blocking and tackling. It's the other pieces that I think are super exciting. Not that search isn't exciting, but the other pieces that are exciting that either are going to help drive your brand equity, and is that going to work? And does that replace national advertising, right? Your national, digital plan, or is it supporting your brand priorities, your tent poles, your, key promotions? I think that little percentage, we're talking a lot about that tiny percentage. I think the capabilities have to continue to expand, right? It's how much can you do on site? Do consumer shoppers, wherever they are at that moment, are they going to the retailer sites and are they getting all this? They really have to kind of open up their toolbox and start thinking about other capabilities, adding other tools, right? Digital out of home. I know, we've done that a lot in the past. The three of us have worked on that in the past. CTV, all those things, to be able to leverage those audiences that hopefully, we're able to tap into, and then go outside of the retailer platform to bring in those audiences in and drive that incrementality. I think that's really where we're going to get to the incrementality. But again, it's that space beyond sponsored search is really what we're talking about, and really what is 100% fascinating. But we have to continue to evolve those tools that are available to us besides just on-site.
Yeah, because on-site, every retailer has a finite amount of inventory.
Right.
They run out of impressions. There's only so many people searching for the word yogurt.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you've got 3 or 4 companies the term, the CPCs will just get way too expensive and the ROAS will come down.
Right.
Eventually, you will stop spending a ton of money on it, right?
Yep.
So they need to expand offsite.
Yep.
Totally agree. And
Right.
that means taking that really important first party data, which is increasingly becoming more and more important
Yep.
and bespoke, and using that elsewhere to drive the results. So I totally agree. I'd love to see more retailers, and there's a lot getting into CTV.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see them continue to take that data and monetize it everywhere that makes sense for a brand.
Yeah, and when you say monetize, I would just throw caution in there. I'm gonna throw caution in there on the CPM side, right? Because, I mean, this is like this whole big circular thing, but if we don't have standardized measurement right now, and we're kind of all over the place, and we're getting from one retailer influence sales and the other one projected sales, and
Right.
not really what's like somewhere, what is the truth? To get somewhere consistent, I think the CPMs then are the things that stand out to a CPG, right? So when we bring in our agency partners, our internal agency partners, our vendor, agency national media partners, suddenly we're looking at CPMs that are exorbitant, right? That are 10 times that what we're getting national.
Sure.
And again, can't compare apples to apples, but that's what people see for lack of having consistent measurement, So those are the things that kind of concern me as we think about
Same.
offsite, right? It's really concerning.
Yeah, it's going to be a premium.
Right.
The question is
Yeah.
how much?
How much,
And then
yeah.
what do you get for that? And
And-
what I would argue is it's justifiable to charge a premium compared to like open web purchases. But you better have better targeting, you get better
You're talking about the premium for onsite at this moment, not the audience targeting.
Offsite, I think.
Yeah.
It's just like two different pricing models.
There,
Yeah.
You can justify a premium for anything if there's
Value.
got value to it, right? So better targeting, better measurement,
Yeah.
better in-store support for
Yeah.
CPGs as an example.
Yeah.
It's gotta have something. You can't just charge a premium and then everything else be the same or less valuable. That
And then
doesn't
not
work.
have the standard measurement.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, we're getting charges for the clean room, right? That's the new buzzword everybody's got
Sure.
right now, right? So you got clean room, you got the first party fee, you've
Yeah.
got the media fee. It's like, whoa.
it's an ad tax of where you look, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it is,
If the value is not there, it's an ad text. But if you can say, if you guys can go back and do the measurement that says, oh, by using a clean room, right, I was able to bring down my CPMs on open web, but I'm paying a premium for the audiences, and shares that
Paying
equate to
ratings,
that, right?
right.
If that all holds true, right, then you're paying for a service. If you're getting the same value across the board with or without this extra tool, then it's a tax.
Right.
Because you're not getting
Agreed,
anything for it.
agreed.
Yeah. And then, like you said, Mike, sorry, but what isn't in the equation from a measurement perspective is what you get during those negotiations when you lock in your JVPs and when you lock
With the
in your.
retailer, so the agency or the CPG, when you're
Exactly.
negotiating with the retailer for a full year plan or a half year plan.
Correct.
Right, retail media is one chunk, but it's not the only chunk.
And it's not the
Right.
first chunk.
Right,
Yes,
First, you meet
exactly.
with the merchant, you'll talk about pricing and distribution, basic stuff.
Yeah.
That's where you should start.
Right.
Then maybe you talk about the loyalty. And then lastly, you talk about retail. Because I think it's building blocks. You want
Yes.
to make sure you get the basics right.
Yes.
And then you get into the amplification of it, which is retail media.
okay. You brought up something really interesting before, and I think you guys will have similar opinions, but curious from a brand versus agency perspective, which is the idea of defending sales versus growing sales. And I'll use a non-retailer like Google for a second, right? Because it's easy to kind of call them out. This way you guys don't feel responsible for calling out any retailers who you're good partners with. But Google, right, obviously makes you pay for keywords that are branded and unbranded.
Mm.
So, for you, someone like Oreos, right? Someone types in Oreos, you have a pretty high intent that you know what they're looking for and what they're going to buy. And yet you're still forced, if you want to buy the keyword against Oreos. If not, your competitors can buy it. Consumer experience, we can argue that all day long, good, better, and different. When you think about the money you're investing in sponsored search, do you have any sense how much is defending versus buying the word cookies or the category of cookies or things where you're influencing someone who might not have bought Oreos before?
Right. So we have a team that just manages sponsored search, and they have a really good strategy and plan behind sponsored search. So, they'll look at, I will say we probably do less branded keywords
Good.
because again,
Good.
if you're looking for an Oreo,
Right.
you're going to go in there and,
Right.
and you're going to go find it. So why pay for it? But there might be some instances where we might buy Oreo. It could be a new product introduction, right? It could be some shift or some change so there are reasons to do that, but I would say probably we do that less often. Then I'm not going to say less often than not, but compared to, other strategies, it will depend on the customer and what is happening at that time with the overall objective. So
I mean, that's good to hear, right? Versus, like you said, defending the Oreos traditional pack in the word Oreos seems like almost a waste of time. But like you said, if you have a brand new flavor, you want that to come to the top of the list and give consumers a chance to see what that new flavor is, because it would be buried otherwise.
Right. And some retailers have some specific guidelines where you have to buy some of those words. It depends on what that retailer, what their guidelines and processes are. In many cases, we have with some retailers brand pages that we've developed, but they only allow us to buy it based on keywords or some of the core words, right? We can't start getting into the competitive or the affinities. So it just depends on each retailer. But I would hope less than not, you know what I mean? Like we're doing it less often, but the situation will vary.
Yeah, there's some retailers are very concerned about what's relevant on their site.
Yes.
A lot of grocery retailers are, and then there's some that really don't care that much about it, like Amazon. If you look at where the sponsored products are, they're all over the place. You almost have to keep scrolling to find non-sponsored products. So they clearly don't give a what about it, and they're just looking to monetize it as much as possible. Which makes sense, right? But so, I mean, we work with retailers and advise them where they should be putting their placements, both to protect it and have a good user experience, but also how to monetize it the most. So it's a balance between the two, and the brands end up just having to play ball with whatever the retailers decide.
It's funny you bring up Amazon, and we don't need to spend any more than 30 seconds on them, right? Because I think they fall outside of traditional retail media. Like when you think about retailers, you guys have both brought up JBPs and merchant negotiations. None of that happens with Amazon. There are no merchants at Amazon. That's
mostly self-serve,
right? It's mostly self-serve. And somebody said to me actually yesterday, thinking about this podcast, so I think the timing is perfect. Amazon's a tech company that happens to be a retailer, where everyone else is a retailer trying to be a media or tech company. Right. And that core genesis of where they come from goes to your point, Mike, which is when retailers look at all the revenue opportunities, right? I say in air quotes that's out there for retail media. We always say the money's there if you want to do Amazon-like things. But then you think about the consumer experience and how the merchants are involved and everything that goes into it, right? Most times they're like, oh no, I can't do this because I can't do that because. So it is interesting because I think when we talk about what is it now, $51 million in retail media, almost 45 of it is coming from Amazon, which actually makes retail media like a stick.
The growth is coming from Amazon.
Right. So that actually really makes retail media a $6 to $8 billion business, which isn't small, but it's not the headlines that everybody's putting out in the marketplace today.
Yeah. I remember back in either 2009, 2010, saying to my CMO at Pfizer, we need to invest in Amazon. They've got purchase-based targeting, which nobody else did. I said they are an ad platform that has the added benefit of e-commerce. Now that's changed a little bit because e-com has become a bigger part of CPG's overall volume. Maybe it's 10 to 20%, depending on the category. It could be higher, it could be lower. But back then it was like 3 to 5%.
Right.
They are exactly what you said. But they're doing it right.
Oh, sure.
They're doing so many things right, not just on platform, but off platform. And I think with Amazon Marketing Cloud, if you're not an expert on it today, you better be, because not only will that help you figure out your marketing mix using Amazon assets, but it will help you off of Amazon. There's just so much you can test and learn on Amazon that you can bring into your national programs or with other retailers for that matter.
Something's also that Mars has an area of expertise in the Amazon business.
You might have one or two people. One or two minutes. Yeah.
You spent some time in that space is what you're trying to say?
I've watched 1 or 2 YouTube videos, sure.
YouTube will teach you everything.
Absolutely.
You guys both mentioned it different ways. I want to take a step back for a second. Obviously, larger budgets are moving into retail media, or again, what we're calling retail media. From a brand perspective, from a CPG perspective, that money doesn't come from nowhere. Right, that isn't just found money that someone's like, oh look, there was a room with money and we can just open the door and grab it, right?
It's usually under a sofa.
So in that sense, what has been like, and again, share what you're allowed to share or comfortable share. What's it been like to validate, argue for, debate, whatever you want to say, that how the money gets moved internally, maybe from national shopper, it could be anywhere, it could be trade to shopper, it could be anywhere. What is that internal conversation like? Because you guys both mentioned there's a lot to prove value in retail media.
Yeah.
Right. And this isn't free money. It's coming from somewhere.
Right.
And I think most people forget that.
Right. Most of the funding for us is coming into shopper marketing. And then there's obviously discussions with the customer business team and so forth. To be honest, this has been we've been on this roller coaster, not roller coaster, actually it's
Journey.
no, this journey, thank you, this journey of educating, right? Because I think this traditional shopper marketing, and again, I'm just sitting here speaking for shopper marketing in general, but the traditional view of shopper marketing has completely changed. And so we're having some really great conversations internally with our brand partners around where we're investing their dollars and how we're investing and the results that we're seeing. And oh, by the way, we work with the Mars agency on a measurement tool on Maryland, and then Steve McGowan, shout out, great manager. Yes, woo-hoo. He developed a regression analysis with the folks at the Mars agency, and it's been validated internally. I think we're relooking at things across the board internally, but we really have used that, and we are seeing the results of digital media and then within retail media. I mean, again, I'll say digital media because it's bigger than just retail media, and third party helps to amplify what we're doing. But there's got to be some measurement. But we're having those conversations with our brand partners, and they're sort of starting to say, so it really makes you stop for a second and say, do I pause a little bit of my equity during the time when we are really pushing out? February is an Oreo month, let's say, right? We have a big Oreo IMC. How much should we be stacking on top of stacking, right? If you think about, the funnel, we're middle to bottom, it's awareness. Should we be coordinating a little bit more? So those are conversations that I think are taking place. We've got some great new media folks internally where, they're coming in with some experience. So we're starting to meet a couple times a year to have some discussions around what's happening across the industry. What are we seeing with different RMNs? How do we, think about this from an investment perspective? And then every year it's the request for funding.
Right. So,
and every year we're going to continue to go through JBPs and where is that, funding going to come from?
Do you start with zero and have to build up, or there's a little bit of anniversary and
there's anniversary for sure. You can't just say, ooh, let's just start, but we do have to validate why we're doing and what we're doing. And we work in partnership with the brand teams who are funded, where our investment is coming from, and our sales team on what are the priorities we're going to chase. We are a DSD organization, so what are we going to focus against? Displays are going to drive the returns. So I don't care what anybody says about
still today, 90% of sales is in store.
Well, it's a lot of impulse purchase, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you really have, so it is this this joint. So we're not at the point where we're saying to brand, hey, I got this, incremental JVP, give me more money.
Right.
It really is a holistic, approach to it. But the education continues. We're really having some great discussions internally.
So it sounds like more positive than negative in the sense of the evolution of the internal conversations have really flourished versus traditionally more CPG silos, right? If there was a national brand team, they sat on one side of the office, right? There was a shopper team, they sat on a different side of the office. They may have never spoken. Now it seems like there's some real strategy behind, like you said, upper, mid, lower part of the funnel. What's happening? How do we support each other?
100%. And they're starting to really understand the dynamics behind shopper marketing, what goes into it. It is not a coupon, people, right? That is a very small percentage of our budget. Yes, we use it for certain instances, but we can get super targeted around household penetration, which is not going to give us the incrementality that everybody always wants, or we're going to go after incremental sales during a specific window. But the conversations are positive. Are they easy? No, because anytime you're going to ask for more money, you always have to validate what you're spending against and are you growing, et cetera. But so the ask for more is never easy.
Sure.
I think we have some really great programs and some great folks out in the field, our shopper marketing directors, who really collaborate with the CBTs and the customers. And so we're seeing some really great results and great engagement from the shopper perspective.
I have a question for you, actually,
Please.
Maybe one for you too. When you're measuring retail media, do you ever measure the impact of campaigns that you run at one specific retailer on another retailer, or that said differently, outside of that retailer that you ran the campaign with? So for example, if you ran a Walmart.com campaign, do you ever look to see what the impact is at Target or Walgreens or Kroger? Or is it really only focused on what happened at that specific retailer?
Predominantly focus on what happens at that retailer. So, but there have been instances, and we did it on our program last year with Ahold, where we have measured the marketplace, impact as well. And in fact, marketplace actually did better
Big, right?
than
Yeah.
than the retailer, which begs the question, you got to go back and say, what did we do right or wrong? Right? What could we have done better to drive the shoppers to the stores or the retailers that we're working with? So in some instances, yes. I mean, you're always looking at, the marketplace dynamics, right? Retail, and then what's happening, share of, losing my whatever key,
Sure.
right? But
Share wallet.
market share, just market share, right? So we're always looking at that. But from a pure campaign perspective, most often not. We're just looking at that specific,
Which is
retailer.
totally normal, and
Yeah.
actually most people do it. The more that people start to measure outside of just that retail, the more I think the eyes will widen. You're like, holy shit,
Yeah,
this is having a bigger impact than I thought.
Right.
Because name another media that
right,
is only measured at a specific retailer, right? You watch a TV commercial,
Yeah.
you
right.
don't just measure, but did someone go buy at Walmart?
Right.
Because
That's
we all
true.
have our shopping patterns and behaviors.
Yeah,
It's really hard to influence someone to go from this retailer to that retailer
Right.
yeah,
or brand to brand.
right.
It happens, but that's really tough behavior
Yeah.
to change. So I guarantee you that retail media is underreported as far as the value goes.
Absolutely.
Because you see,
measuring it in a vacuum?
Correct.
it is, yeah, I mean, it's
No, interesting.
partly because the campaigns tend to be smaller, harder
Correct,
to measure
correct, yeah,
in the total marketplace. So you need you have to pass feasibility hurdles, which can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. It's getting lower, thankfully. But I
right,
think as the data gets stronger and measurement gets better, you'll start to see that retail media has been underreported since the beginning of time, or at the beginning of retail media. And I think that'll actually fuel more investment in retail media down the road. That's my
yeah.
thesis.
No, that's super interesting. Yeah, I'd have to go look back at some of the measurement that we're doing with the Mars agency to see if there is an indicator there. But the nice part about what we're doing with Mars is we can we're slicing and dicing data that we're not doing with other big measurement companies today. And we can take it down to retailer to $10,000 spends. That's pretty low, right? So we're really getting some great results. I hope that we can continue to look at that as the company kind of looks at a higher, kind of an umbrella methodology across the board. So, but you gave me something to think about.
And Mike, what's also interesting about the way you're describing it, obviously, plug to you guys for having a view not only of shopper marketing, but overall, agency buying. Like you do service on behalf of many different clients in that perspective. And so your measurement is more inclusive than just retail media, which I think is great. And what'll be interesting in the future is as we get to better log level data, so impression level and user ID level, that'll actually allow you to say, oh, the attribution of this person, we can actually follow what when they were exposed, what mediums they were exposed to, and then what that impact was, like you said, in store, but then overall the halo effect, right? Because retail media isn't a 0 from a halo effect. Whether it's a 1, whether it's a 50, we have no idea yet, right?
Exactly.
That's very early stage. And I like your example of doing, even with Ahold Delhaize, we did also a market measurement as well.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Just to see what is the incremental impact. And I say incremental, meaning outside of just the retailer you're focused on.
Yeah.
Right. I know we're running short on time, so let's actually finish with measurement specifically.
Cool.
It's one of your favorite topics, so I have to make sure we at least mention it once. Starts with an I and ends with an incrementality in that sense. If you had one wish, knowing what's happened and what's evolved in the retail media space that has to do with measurement, because like you said, you have to prove when you're asking for more money, the number one thing you have to do is prove what you've done was successful, and why would incremental money, right, add to incremental value. So think about it like that. What's your one ask of the industry from a measurement perspective that would help you plan for 2024?
I would just say, like we've been talking about, is standardization. Okay. Everybody get on the same page. Okay. But everyone's got to buy into it, right? All of the retailers have to buy into it. And then internally, the CPGs have to buy into it as well. So my second wish would be internally, we do have to kind of, come to the table with and understand what that standardization is and how it looks different national media versus, retailer or versus key IMCs or promotions and things like that. So, but yeah.
Who leads the standardization? Should that come from the retailers because they're kind of the middle point of all this? Should it come from the brand? Should it come from an agency? Should it come from a vendor?
I mean, we're all following IAB standards, right? So there's got to be some, I would think a group that is, kind of pushing the standards out. And then we, from a CPG perspective, have to make sure that retailers are going to follow that, right? And are there repercussions if they do or don't?
Correct.
I don't know, but that is the only, we can't keep, it can't be plus every time.
Agreed.
We have to, kind of figure out what that investment is doing.
But the trade group kind of be the neutral organizer, if you will.
Yeah.
But all parties need to lean into, yes, this is a 80%, like everyone's okay with an 80% okay, right? Nothing's ever going to be perfect because what's perfect for you is different than Pepsi, is different than Coke, is different than Unilever.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? But the IAB as one organization, right, could come up with an 80%. We've got this, we can move forward.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to buy in.
Yeah.
Mike, similar question, but obviously you have your own measurement capabilities, right? You see, again, CPGs at a shopper level, at a national level, at a local level. As you think about measurements and what maybe, let me say it like this, as you think about measurement of what you're trying to bring to the marketplace as innovation or leading, what should Yo kind of listen to or leave with? It says, oh, wow, Mars is thinking about this differently, but in a way that could really impact my business.
Well, I agree with the standardization. We're comparing apples and oranges right now in a lot of cases. With our connected commerce planning platform called Merna that you mentioned, we do normalize and standardize the data that we ingest so that we are comparing. And that's a lot of the heavy lift.
Yeah.
So we can compare apples to apples. So it would be great for retailers to start to be more and more transparent and offer their data, whether it's through API feeds, but offering is open up the kimono and share the data. And we see this with more advanced platforms. And you've worked with retail, you've stood up some retail media platforms yourself. Early on, retailers are very protective of their data. Because they don't know if it works.
Yep.
And so they wait until they can prove that it works, and then they start to share more and more.
Yep.
And so that's a natural progression every single retailer has either gone through or is going through as we sit here today. And I'm witnessing it firsthand with some retailers that we're helping right now as we speak. But so we're pushing them to open it up more and more so that we can start to really do our own marketing mix modeling.
Yeah.
Right. And they need to, again, I'll go back to, they have to follow Amazon's lead because they are doing that. Walmart to a lesser degree is starting to do that. Every retailer needs to kind of get their data house in order and be more transparent so that we can all actually see what's really happening. So that would be our biggest wish, is getting the right data from the retailers and any third party parties that we work with outside of the retailer, because retail media isn't just about using the retailer's assets. Often we take their data, like you talked about, and then we use it on social, we use it in digital at home, and then we need that data coming back from those other third parties, DSPs. Then we can start we can continue to make smarter and smarter decisions.
So really, as the summary to both of you guys, not only is it standardization on one side, it's the transparency and lot level information coming back to the measurement platform, because at that granular level, you could decipher everything that's happening at that point.
You just need the data. The tools are out there to make sense of it.
I say that we're starting to have some really good discussions with retailers. It's not across the board.
Sure.
Everything is not pretty and smells great at this point, but
rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah, rainbows and unicorns. But we are, everybody's got to come to the table and have these discussions. If it's only one CPG pushing back, you know what I mean? We all have to come to the table and really push back and push for that transparency and actual sales, and the key, just the key attribution of the key KPIs or criteria that is needed to get to that level of measurement. And I'm feeling that conversation opening up. I can't say we're going to get there, right? Because their way of measuring is measuring. But at some point, we're going to start getting there with more retailers, and the ones that are not there, it's like we got to stop until we get there. I would assume those conversations will continue to happen. So.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. This went exactly how I thought it would be, which was I didn't have to say much. You guys were going to do all the talking, which is great. Typical with both of you.
That must be really hard for you.
Very hard. Twiddling my thumbs, trying to pause.
At least enjoyable.
Please
half an hour to
tell
money from.